Most people don't struggle with money because they're lazy or uninformed. They struggle because money decisions are rarely logical. They are emotional. They are shaped by fear, comparison, pressure, and the constant feeling that we are falling behind. You can read every finance article. You can learn every strategy, and still make decisions that quietly damage your future. Because building wealth is not just about numbers. It's about behavior, patience, and the ability to stay calm when the world pushes you to react. This video is not about how to get rich fast. It's about something deeper. It's about mental wealth, the inner stability that allows money to support your life, instead of controlling it. Wealth is not intelligence, it's behavior. One of the biggest myths about money is that successful people are simply smarter. In reality, intelligence often makes things worse. Smart people tend to overthink. They trust their ability to predict outcomes. They act more often than they should, and frequent action creates frequent mistakes. Meanwhile, many people with average knowledge quietly outperform, not because they know more, but because they interfere less. Mental wealth begins when you understand this truth. You don't need to make brilliant decisions. You need to avoid destructive ones. Real-world example. Imagine two people with similar incomes. One constantly adjusts their financial decisions based on news, trends, or emotions. The other follows a simple routine and rarely changes it. Over time, the second person often ends up more stable, not because they were right more often, but because they stayed consistent. Behavior beats brilliance. Survival matters more than returns. Most financial advice focuses on maximizing outcomes, but there's a more important question. Can you stay in the game? If a strategy collapses under stress, it doesn't matter how impressive it looked before. Time is the most powerful force in wealth building, but time only works for those who survive emotionally and financially. Mental wealth means designing your life so that you don't panic under pressure. You don't need perfect timing. You don't break during downturns. Real-world example. Some people chase aggressive growth. They succeed quickly until they don't. When conditions change, they are forced out, not because they were wrong, but because their plan had no margin for error. The strongest strategies often look boring, but boring is survivable, and survivable compounds. The greatest risks are the ones you never see. Most people define risk as loss, but the most dangerous risks are invisible. They are not written in spreadsheets. They don't show up in forecasts. They include emotional burnout, lifestyle pressure, changing responsibilities, mental exhaustion. Mental wealth is about preparing for uncertainty, not pretending it doesn't exist. Real-world example. Someone builds a plan that looks perfect on paper. Then life changes, health shifts, family needs evolve, stress accumulates. Suddenly, the optimal plan becomes unbearable. The problem was never logic. The problem was ignoring human limits. Mental wealth respects those limits. Comparison is the most expensive habit. Comparison quietly destroys financial peace. You might be doing fine until you see someone doing better, faster progress, bigger lifestyle, more visible success, and suddenly, your own path feels wrong. But comparison ignores context. You don't see the pressure they live under, the risks they carry, the trade-offs they made. Mental wealth means staying aligned with your values, not borrowing someone else's finish line. Real-world example. Many people increase risk not because they need to, but because they don't want to feel left behind. That single emotional decision often causes years of regret. Mental wealth asks a different question. Is this choice improving my life, or just protecting my ego? True wealth is optionality. Real wealth is quiet. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't need validation. Its greatest power is freedom. The freedom to slow down. The freedom to say no. The freedom to choose long-term peace over short-term approval. Mental wealth means having enough space, financial and emotional, to make decisions without panic. Real-world example. When you have margin in your life, you don't accept work that drains you. You don't rush decisions. You don't trade your future for temporary relief. Optionality is not luxury. It is security. Long-term success comes from avoiding fatal mistakes. Most people believe success comes from bold moves, but long-term success is usually built by avoiding irreversible errors. These include all-in decisions, emotional reactions, risk levels you can't recover from. Mental wealth is not about winning big. It's about staying intact. Real-world example. People who last decades don't avoid mistakes entirely. They avoid the mistakes that end the game. They accept imperfection. They prioritize durability. They protect their ability to continue. Mental wealth is not about becoming fearless. It's about becoming calm. It's about building a life where money supports clarity, not anxiety. You don't need the highest returns. You don't need perfect timing. You need patience. You need self-awareness. And you need a position you don't need to escape from. This channel is about thinking clearly, in a world that constantly pulls you to react.